Okay. I want to just spend a few minutes with you here this morning, going through kind of a lot of factual information. So it's going to be kind of information heavy. But my goal here is to just kind of, as the title might imply, we're going to kind of take a pulse of our district, look at a lot of different facts, and kind of talk a little bit about what some of that means, allow you guys to draw some of your own conclusions. There's a lot of good news in here. There are some things that we want to continue to work on, and I think that's really important, that we're just transparent with one another, with our public, our taxpayers, our parents, just really kind of trying to take an honest look at how we're doing. And I think really the good news, the greatest news of all of this, I think, is that even in areas, I think, where we aren't where we want to be, I think we have a plan. We have a pretty solid plan in place, and everybody in this room is working towards making things better for our kids. So that's really fun stuff. Speaking of fun stuff, I guess one of the first things I want to talk about is this image here, Pickaxe Pete, with this little slogan that we have. I'm just curious, this is going to be marginally interactive here. I might occasionally ask you guys some questions. Show of hands, how many of you have seen this slogan yet? Cohesive community, boundless opportunity, discover your goal. Raise your hand if you've seen that. Oh, good. So the word's getting out a little bit. And for those of you who haven't seen it, look at your coffee mug you got this morning. It's right there. It'll remind you every day that you use that coffee mug. But the story behind this is a couple of years ago, we decided with our strategic plan to develop some committees that would work on some of those strategic goals. And one of the committees we have is the Culture and Branding Committee. And kind of a fun project that I guess started with that committee was to come up with a mascot. We've always kind of had a mascot, like we know that. And just to be clear, this is not to replace our district logo. Our district logo, I think, has been really unchanged for at least 50 years, as far back as I can see. And even further back than that, there's been some iteration of the pick, pan, and shovel, and we're not getting away from that. But what we really lacked was a print image of a mascot. So it started with the Culture and Branding Committee. They brainstormed some ideas. We hired a marketing firm, and they came up with, I don't know, probably half a dozen different iterations of a mascot based on a minor. And I guess the name Pickaxe Pete has been around for a while, but we even took that to the student body and asked students. We had a little naming survey, and Pickaxe Pete came back overwhelmingly as the name we wanted to stick with. But also, it's really a pretty good looking mascot, don't you think? I think we should give a hand for our committee. I know Tony Waldrop really thinks it's a good looking mascot. Because people have kind of said that it really looks like Tony. And that was not necessarily intentional. I don't know, maybe it was subconscious, but as the committee talked, we kind of talked about, we wanted, a mascot that's going to look capable, but somewhat not overly intimidating, somewhat gregarious, but one that's really going to kind of take care of business. So I don't know, maybe some people had an image of a certain person in their heads. When we started the process, I don't think anybody ever said make it look like Tony, but kind of happened. And I think we've been pretty pleased with Pickaxe Pete. But where the slogan came from, if you recall, about a year ago, I think it might have been in February, so maybe 11 months ago, we had a survey among students and staff asking, what are the things that you value most in your school? And a lot of the answers came back pretty heavily with a sense of community, great opportunities for kids, programming. I guess Mrs. Todd, a feather in your cap, a lot of people in the comments section specifically named the Digger Depot. So that kind of stood out. But also, like in our elementary school, like a lot of people really focused on our PE opportunities and our lifetime activities that we do in the elementary. So those opportunities for kids, the programming that we have in this district, the course offerings that we have, all that stuff was kind of a part of that boundless opportunity. And then, of course, the idea that kids can find their passion and discover their gold here at Lead-Deadwood, in Lead-Deadwood School District. That kind of got condensed down through the committee work and through the help of that marketing firm with this slogan. So we're pretty proud of that. Got a lot of input from our stakeholders on that, and I think it's a pretty good slogan. So this is the kind of the dry part of the presentation, and you might be thinking, oh my, this is the dry part. What did we just go through? But anyway, some interesting numbers that we have that kind of tell a little bit of the story of Lead-Deadwood School District. Our district enrollment last Friday in September was 637. You can kind of see the breakdown there on the PowerPoint. We have 62 certified teachers with an average teacher salary this year of $60,470.49, which I believe is going to put us in the top 20 in the state. Now there's an asterisk there, and you might say, why don't you know? Well, there's a salary survey that pretty much every school district does throughout the state, and the salary survey for the current school year isn't quite complete. So that's a little bit of a projected guess there. Like it's maybe 60 or 70% complete right now. And we're sitting somewhere around like 12, 13, so as those numbers from different school districts continue to come in, I'm sure we'll bump down a little bit, but feel pretty confident we'll still be in the top 20. And that's something to be proud of. Some of these numbers, some of these facts that we're giving you are things that we're really proud of, and some of these things are things we want to continue to work on. But that average teacher salary was 22nd in the state for the 23-24 school year. So that's last year. And then the year before that, it was 25th. So do you see a trend there? I think we're heading in the right direction. And we've all heard from the governor's budget address that a lot of the state aid schools, well, all the state aid schools, they're looking at I think it's about a 2% increase, or 1.5% or 2%, I can't remember exactly, increase to state aid. So I think we have an opportunity. We always have to balance, our taxpayers are kind of our homeowners and taxpayers in our district, like everywhere. They're kind of getting hammered with high taxes. So you always have to kind of balance that. But if we want to gain ground on the rest of the state, this upcoming year might be a good time to do that, because our revenue isn't as directly tied to that state aid formula as the rest of the schools. So we might, with the economy being what it is, we might see a little bit of slowdown. We might not get the 6-7% raises every year, but I think we're probably going to do better than a lot of those around us. And I think that's really the key thing, is to remember we're competing for teachers, competing for kids, and we want the best and brightest on our staff. And I think we do have the best and brightest, but to keep that up and to keep getting better, we've got to be competitive with salary. So that's really been a focus of our district and of our board over the last few years, and I think we can continue on that trend. This next one down, 51,000 base teacher salary. Again, we're projecting that to be in the top 20 in the state this year. We'll probably have that data. I'm sure by the end of February, it'll be really pretty solidified, knowing where we rank. But if you look down at the next bullet point, our base pay, and it wasn't 51,000 last year. I can't remember what it was, maybe 47.5, something like that. But anyway, it was 30th in the state for the 23-24 school year. And that was up from 45th the year before, and then 88th the year before that. And one thing I'd like to kind of point out too, as we go through like teacher negotiations and stuff like that, I feel that the base pay is pretty important. And I think it's important to remember that since we don't have a direct salary schedule, it's a little bit disassociated from what our existing teachers earn, except in this instance, we've had a few, and I'm sure, I'm not gonna ask for a show of hands, but a few of you can relate to if you came in as a base salary teacher, or maybe you're a year in, something like that, you notice that you were making $500 above the base when we raised the base salary. And it's kind of ironic, sometimes people grumble about that. Well, that's not fair. I'm only making $500 more than a brand new teacher that's hired. But it's important to keep in mind that in those cases where that person got that $500 above base bump, that's where the whole staff got like 7%, but 7% didn't bring them up to the new base. So that $500 bump got them past the new base. So those teachers who were at the bottom and got that $500 above base actually were getting like 9 or 10% raises in a lot of cases. So it's kind of important to keep that in mind. And so that's where that base did kind of help some of our existing teachers as well. But I feel like all of our teachers have done pretty well last few years. The next bullet, $14,470 cost per ADM. That's cost per pupil to run the school district. This is one I'm not particularly proud of. It's the third highest among districts over 500 enrollment. Now, every school district is unique, and we know that we're unique, and we have a lot of unique needs. The reason I'm not so concerned with just being super efficient. I think we kind of do what we need to do. But where I kind of think that that's a little bit out of place is if we're the third highest, then I think we can do better on our salaries. And I think those are the things we need to bring in line. So, over time, yeah, we'll try and find opportunities to get more efficient, but more so than that, I think to bring that number, rather than changing that number so much, I'd rather focus on trying to get our salaries up over time. So I think if you're third highest per ADM, you should probably be higher than 20th for salaries. I think that those should correlate a little better. So next bullet is something we're pretty proud of, but again, the average people, everybody in this room is kind of getting hammered by the economy and inflation and all that. So like, it seems like, yeah, you maybe make more money than you ever have, but it doesn't seem to go as far. But I'm pretty proud of the fact that in the last 4 years, we've gone from $12 an hour starting wage to $18.81. So that's, more than a 50% increase. That's pretty good. 34.7% of our students qualify for free and reduced meals. And I think that number would actually be higher if we get people to fill out the darn application. That's been a little bit of a problem. But anyway, so it kind of shows a little bit of our situation. We've got a high poverty level in the district. 14.4% of students are identified with special needs. This next one is just kind of interesting, $1.97 billion assessed valuation. So that's the total value of taxable property in the school district. And with that, we levied an amount to give us about $2.25 million in local capital outlay revenue. So that's tax dollars for capital outlay, things like textbooks, furniture, school buses, buildings, that kind of thing. And that's for the current fiscal year. We could have levied at the max almost $2.5 million. So we left a little money on the table, left a little money in the taxpayers' pockets. We didn't levy the full amount. And that's going to become more and more important because we're seeing some of the talk in the legislature is that there's going to be a big pushback on property taxes this coming legislative session, and it's kind of reaching a boiling point across our state. And I think one thing we can be proud of is that our school board, obviously, are made up of taxpayers as well, and they while they try and do the best they can for kids, the best they can for us as employees, they're also mindful of the impact on taxpayers. So I'm pretty proud of that for our board. 9.43 million local general fund revenue for FY25 versus a potential 9.9 million at max levy. So again, leaving a little bit of money in the taxpayers' pockets. 1.82 million in special ed revenue, roughly, for FY24 versus potential 2.3 million at max levy. So altogether, we're leaving at least $1.25 million. I think it might be closer to $1.5 million, without the rounding and that kind of thing, in the taxpayers' pockets. So that's important for us to know as staff members, because when you hear people out in the public grumble about their taxes, hey, I feel your pain, man, but guess what? Our school is doing a little better than some others because we're not levying the max on our taxpayers. If you all remember, we took a staff climate survey back in November, the week of the 18th to the 22nd, and I had kind of indicated to you that I would share those results publicly. And so this is the kind of first part of that. We're going to have the full results available on the website after today. But 95 staff members responded. That's really great. It seems like a lot of times if you can get 50% response on a survey, you're doing pretty well. We had 95 people out of 140, 50 that responded. So that was pretty good response. What we're going to do with this data, we've kind of already started those on the admin team where we have monthly admin meetings. We've talked a little bit about how we can use this data to develop strategies for improvement, also to focus on, hey, what's working, what can we keep working. So like I said, the full results will be shared publicly and will be available on the district website after today. Now, looking at a few of the bits of good news, most people feel happy in their jobs in our district. So what we found is when asked the question, basically, I am happy in my job. I lost my glasses a couple of months ago. Numbers get pretty low, so bear with me a minute. I've got some comments written down. There we go. Okay. So when asked if they're happy with their job, well, when you look at the strongly agree and agree, it looks like, gosh, I cannot read those. 78. Looks like 82% agree or strongly agree. Oh, sorry about that. That was a little rough. I am spoken to and treated respectfully by my supervisor. %, felt that way, either strongly agreed or agreed. And I'm spoken to and treated respectfully by my colleagues. Looks like that's a full 80%. I apologize for that being a little rough. I had to go and look at the screen. But it basically tells us the good news is we have a culture of respect. And I think that's something that we want to continue to improve on, continue to grow with, but we can feel pretty good about. More good news. I feel that my school is a safe place for students and staff. We've got 86% agreeing or strongly agreeing there. I feel empowered to make decisions that are best for students. I think that's about 89%. Am I right there without walking over there and looking? 79. 79. Okay, well, not as good as I thought, but close to 80. And then this next one, I think it's 83%, 83 or 84. I feel heard by my building level administration. So those are all good things. Okay, now I think that for these type of surveys, this type of information to be useful, we also need to look at where we can do better, areas of concern. And when asked whether employees in the district are held accountable appropriately, 41% were either neutral or disagreed. And that's an area of concern. It still has a majority of the people agreeing or strongly agreeing, but as you can see, that's concerning if we have that many people that are either kind of ambivalent about it or disagree. And so I think that could mean one of two things. People either feel that people aren't being held accountable, or people feel that the accountability is coming unfairly. It's uneven. And so I think what we're going to do with that, and that's going to be a little project that the admin team is going to work on, because I think we want all of our employees to feel that things are fair. And I think accountability needs to come in a way that is palatable, so that we're all kind of pulling on the same harness, pulling in the same direction. And so that's really something we need to work on. And I think to kind of parse out what that means exactly, that's going to take some more, I think, intimate conversations on the building level, department level, and just kind of sorting through how people are feeling there and how we can do better. So that's maybe something you can think about too, that if that's a place where you didn't agree or strongly agree, we'd like to hear a little more feedback on and see what we can do. And then when asked whether they feel like a valued part of a team, 21% were either neutral or disagreed. Again, that means that 79% really agreed or strongly agreed. The problem with that, though, 21% is a pretty big number. If we really want to be focused on being a team, 21% is a pretty big number to have out there that don't really feel like they're part of a team. So again, that's something we're going to kind of work on, trying to get that number a lot higher. All right, more fun stuff. Report card data. Okay, kind of picked out some things. Now, I think that the report card data, by and large, I think for all three buildings is, I think, really pretty good news. We always kind of look at comparing to the state average. Okay, and I think we're comparing fairly well with the state average. Obviously, we still have some room for growth, but in a lot of places we're at or near. So 53% proficient or advanced in English language arts at the elementary versus 51% at state average, so we're above state average there. Math, 37% proficient or advanced compared to 44% state average. A little bit of work to do there, but the good news is we've got some really strong interventions in place, and it's something that I know people are working very hard on to get us to the next level there. 27% proficient or advanced in science versus 43% state average. That's kind of our lowest score, but as you know, we're putting a lot of emphasis on science right now. And I think that number is trending in the right direction. And then also I would note with math and science through the Curriculum Council, we're looking at evaluating our curriculum. That doesn't mean necessarily there are immediate changes coming, but there could be. It's something that's being looked at pretty hard. This next one is really pretty good news. 98% attendance rate versus 87% state average. Okay, so we're significantly higher than the state average. That's great. Up from 92% the year before, which is up from 76% the year before that. So our attendance is definitely trending in the right direction. 6% chronic absenteeism versus 21% state average. We're knocking it out of the park there. Really doing a good job. Chronic absenteeism rate in 21-22 was 29%. And I think some of that could, that was coming right off of COVID year and that kind of thing. But still, great gains. We made great gains there. Just about a third of our teachers have a master's degree. 13.9 years of experience on average in our elementary school. I think that, like some people would say, well, geez, it'd be nice if we had some more experienced teachers. But I think that's really great because I think we've got a good mix. We've got some people who've been there a long time, and that's true in all of our buildings, bringing that experience. But along with that, we've got some young, energetic people learning from those experienced people, and that really gives us a lot of hope for our future. And then 15.1% of our elementary teachers have 3 or fewer years of experience. I don't know if that's good or bad. It just is what it is. Okay. And this is kind of weird. Look at my heading there. Elementary math. I should say math and reading screener data, I think. And I say reader screening data, but whatever. So in reading, all grade levels have shown growth in the number of students at benchmark from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. That's great. Fourth grade has already exceeded its end of year goal of 80% students at benchmark. And I think it's important to keep in mind too, and I think when the general public consumes this data, I'd like them to keep in mind that we're looking at a snapshot beginning and middle of year asking, are the third graders at grade level, for instance? Well, when you say at grade level, that's end of the year number, okay? And so we've got, like, we're already approaching, or in some cases exceeding our goal of 80% for the year. So that's great. We're in a great place for this time of year. Kindergarten, fourth grade, and fifth grade have all seen gains between 11 and 23% from beginning of the year to middle of the year. And then showing promise all the way through. Okay, report card data for the middle school. Okay, pretty similar. Our middle school is really doing a great job compared to the state average. Slightly above in ELA, language arts, just right at or slightly below in math, significantly above in science. Again, the attendance rate, 90% versus 87% state average. And you can see those numbers, how that's climbed from 75 to 85 to now 90. Chronic absenteeism, still 14%, a little higher than we'd like, but certainly a lot better than it was the past 2 years before that. 35% of our middle school teachers have a master's degree or higher. 13 years of teaching experience. So good news in the middle school. Now, again, it's not just the state tests, but we do a lot of interim assessment testing and just kind of a snapshot. That 8th grade class were tested twice this year. Beginning of the year, you can see the growth from 47% below standard to now only 33% below standard. So that's pretty good progress for middle of the year. Still got half a year to go, so that's great. Okay, and I'm kind of picking up the pace here. You kind of noticed because we're getting right up against our time. So report card data for the high school. 60% proficient or advanced in language arts. Awesome. Kind of crushing the state average. Math, we're approaching the state average, and I think we're trending in the right direction there. And again, science slightly below the state average. 65% of our high school students are college and career ready versus 58% state average. That's really good news. High school graduation rate is above the state average. On-time graduation rate is above the state average. Almost 40%, 38% of our high school teachers have a master's degree. Little lower years of experience, 12.3 in the high school. But still, again, same thing with the elementary. It's great to have a mix of young and experienced people. Okay, some of the ACT data is also interesting. This is from last year's graduating class. We're like half a point above the state average in our average ACT score. I think this is interesting. 79% of Lead-Deadwood high school students tested were enrolled in core or more curriculum. So that means that they had 4 years of English and 3 or more each of math, science, and social studies. And so we talk about one of the great things in our district is our programming and all the choices we give kids and that kind of thing. And we can see that our high school kids are really taking advantage of that with their course selection. Okay, this is an interesting one, and I kind of want to, and we're going to wrap this whole thing up in the next couple of minutes. But a kind of a disturbing statistic is that we have 95 Lead-Deadwood students that are homeschooled. That sounds really, really bad for a district our size. But look at the next bullet point. By comparison, Custer has 172, Belle Fourche 165, Hot Springs 148, Newell 76, Hill City 61, Meade and Spearfish are 504 and 437 respectively. Those numbers come from the Department of Education. But I think we've looked at some very specific data, looked at specific kids who have left our district in the last 5 years to homeschool since 2020. These are really interesting because I think people have an image in their heads, and I personally support families' right to choose to homeschool. I think a lot of families do a great job with that, but I think that we have an image of what a homeschool student looks like. And I guess our data, I would say for a significant number of kids, kind of challenges what that image is. And that is that 58% of the students, over half, that have left our school to go homeschool were chronically absent in their last year in the district. 21%, so 1 out of 5, had been suspended at least once. 20%, again, 1 out of 5, had 3 or more major discipline events. So not classroom level stuff, but being sent to the office for something major. 43% had 2 or more failing grades. I think that those are some numbers when we talk about vouchers and giving taxpayer dollars to people to homeschool. I think that's something the public needs to look at because when you give that voucher, there's no local school board overseeing. You know, we have a locally elected board that holds everybody in this room accountable for results, for everything. And I think this is an important thing to look at. Okay, some of the things we're proud of is our elementary STEM program, our math interventions, reading interventions, all the wonderful things we do in our PE program that are lifetime skills for kids. In our middle school, we've got tremendous feeder programs for our career and technical education courses, vast array of exploratory classes with art, music, math enrichment, all kinds of things like that. Again, high school programming, I would put our CTE programming up against a lot of larger school districts with more resources. And the other thing that's unique about us as a high school is that we offer a lot of choice for the core curriculum too. So a lot of choice in the English classes kids take, the math classes, the science classes, to count for high school graduation. And then just real quick here, as I wrap up, I want to kind of flash the district's strategic goals up there. We have goals for culture. We'll take action to create a culture that celebrates success, take action to increase school spirit, student participation in school activities, including arts, athletics, academic co-curriculars, and clubs, and the district will take action to promote and enhance the well-being of students and staff. Financially, the district will take action specifically targeted to increase enrollment. District will prioritize fiscal responsibility in meeting student needs. And for student achievement, district will take action to increase student success as evidenced by objective measures. We talked about a lot of those objective measures there. District will take action to increase student attendance. We're doing a great job there. And the district will offer and support programming of a broad spectrum to meet all the needs of students and finding their passion. So again, going back to our little slogan. And I guess just finally, I'd like to close with kind of a thank you to all of our staff and to our school board. There's a lot of good news in here. There's always going to be things you can work on. But I think what I've seen is a lot of hard work by you people, kind of taking our district to the next level. And I think we're on the right trajectory. So thank you. And I'd like you to give yourselves a round of applause for that.